Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Traditionally Speaking. My name's Tom. I'm joined with my friend Joe, and today we're going to be talking about something that I'm sure is dear to many of our hearts, Christmas TV, here in the UK and over in the US.
Boy, I'll tell you, already I'm just seeing a flood of Christmas specials and Christmas TV dealings coming up. And boy, it just excites me because it means we're getting close.
Well, do you know, that is the amazing thing about the Christmas special, isn't it? Because people talk now about, the era of streaming TV. They talk about, people no longer being in the living room to watch all the Christmas specials. But I think there's still a very strong nostalgia for Christmas TV generally. I think that's borne out by the fact that so many people are still catching up with all of these specials, on YouTube and on other video streaming channels. That just shows how much interest there still is in the good old-fashioned Christmas TV special. But, over here, you have things like the Morecambe and Wise Christmas specials between the 60s and the 80s. They were regularly bringing in, well over 10 million, if not nearly 20 million viewers every year. It was just something everybody watched. I guess the closest thing you had in the US would be the Bob Hope Christmas special, because he did it for decades.
Yeah. Well, we had Bob Hope and Dean Martin and, you name it, and the King family and all of that. And people love that because they're feel-good TV, so.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing that fascinates me. There are so many really memorable Christmas specials. Over here, we had The Snowman on Channel 4. I mean, that came out in the early 1980s. Still watch it now. There was a few years ago a sequel to it, which is continually shown every Christmas time. We have specials. Doctor Who, for instance, long-running science fiction program, regularly has a Christmas special. We have situation comedies like Mrs. Brown's Boys. We have dramas like Call the Midwife. And of course, Strictly Come Dancing, which I think in the US is Dancing with the Stars.
That's correct.
These are all really popular Christmas staples.
And it's funny now, and especially nowadays, you're also seeing a lot of Christmas movies coming on as like specials, like the Hallmark Channel and different channels that are posting a lot of Christmas movies as well as Christmas specials. So, and of course, YouTube helps a lot because you can find some great, you can find the old Andy Williams Christmas specials and that type of thing. And this was something that, especially for me, I grew up with as a child. So it's a wonderful thing to see on a regular basis. But between the movies and the specials, it lifts you up.
Yeah, it really does. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the big things, certainly, in years past in the UK, was variety specials. You would have the Royal Command performance, and you would have Christmas at the London Palladium. These various sort of variety acts that would mix music, comedy, drama, performance. It was always a really interesting part of the Christmas TV lineup. Do you think that's something that's making a comeback in the US?
Oh, it's taking a slightly different form, certainly from like the 60s and 70s, but it's still there and it's still prevalent throughout the holiday season. Is you're still seeing specials coming on board. And of course, now you're getting new ones. Certainly Taylor Swift is probably going to do something, and Beyonce is going to do something. And, so you're seeing it, but with new pop stars and new people coming aboard, which I think is wonderful. They're carrying that tradition on, but they're making it their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really interesting things I've noticed in the last few years, of course, has been streaming channels like Netflix have had a whole lot of really interesting international Christmas specials, where perhaps have been dubbed or they've been subtitled from other languages. And I think that's great to see how other countries are celebrating the festive period. They all have their own traditions, and it's a good way of finding out a little bit more about how Christmas is celebrated there too.
And when you see how successful Hallmark has been with all of their movies and specials that they come out with on their channel, it's not a surprise that Netflix and Amazon and some of the others are doing the same thing and trying to follow and emulate that model because it is successful.
Mm.
And as you know, people are enthralled with Christmas no matter what, whether it's TV specials, books, or movies.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of books, Tom, you got a new one coming out, don't you?
Yes, that's very true. It's just literally hot off the press, and that is a seriously groovy movie Christmas, taking you back to all of those weird and wonderful movies from the 60s and 70s.
Oh, I bet you that one's got to be interesting. There were some really strange movies back there, wasn't there?
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing I discovered about it that really fascinated me is the fact that so many of these films, they were coming out against a really febrile backdrop because everybody was selling colour TVs. So, I mean, you had amazing, Christmas TV specials, TV movies, really starting to take off. Films like An American Christmas Carol and A House Without a Christmas Tree and all of those films, which were beautifully produced, well budgeted, good production values, excellent performances. And then you had what was going on in the cinema. And it was usually pretty low key, So you would have weird and wonderful films like The Magic Christmas Tree, The Christmas It Almost Wasn't, and of course, Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny, which is a film that probably it probably couldn't have been made at any other time than it did in the 70s, and it's a very surreal film. But on the other hand, you had films like The Lion in Winter. You had the musical Albert Finney version of Scrooge. You had Black Christmas, which is a tremendously suspenseful horror film. And you had The Apartment by Billy Wilder. All of these really amazing films, very experimental Christmas films that were coming out then. So it was a really important transitional period for Christmas movies.
And this 60s book, now this ties in with all your other books, like your 80s book and well, you tell them, you got the list, you've written them all.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the interesting thing for me because after all of these 10 years, I think I've been at it now. This is finally the fourth volume in the series that completes the Christmas cinema of the 20th century. So you have that golden age in the 1940s where all of the themes that we typify Christmas films with, they all came out really between sort of 1945 and 1947. And then after that, you have that 50s period where they make, White Christmas, and somebody somewhere in the studios thought, well, we've now got Bing Crosby tap dancing with Danny Kaye. We're not going to top this, guys. We've peaked now. This is peak Christmas. And then you had that long wilderness period in the 60s and 70s where you had all these weird experimental films. You had subgenres. You had people deciding that they could suddenly harmonize horror movies with Christmas movies and things like that. Suddenly, back in the 80s, there's a huge commercial revival. You have all these really popular Christmas films like Scrooged and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Santa Claus the Movie. And that lays the groundwork for the 90s, where really things take off and Christmas cinema really becomes that huge blockbuster period that we all know and love in the modern day. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had Christmas TV running alongside that. A lot of these movies have been on TV, and there are a lot of films that have been made specifically for TV. You mentioned the Hallmark movies, and of course Lifetime, and all of those many other channels that are making these movies now. So yeah, absolutely, it's good to know that there is that cross pollination between movies and TV.
Now, before you run off on that, these books are available at Extremis Publishing, correct?
That's right.
And where else? How can you get a copy if you're interested?
Well, you can get it from any good online retailer or from independent bookstores. There are 4 volumes. There is The Golden Age of Christmas Movies, A Seriously Groovy Movie Christmas, A Righteously Awesome 80s Christmas, and A Totally Bodacious 90s Christmas. So that covers the whole gamut from the 40s all the way up to the turn of the century.
So look these up, folks. I'll tell you, really, Tom does a great job getting into the movies themselves and how they were produced and that. So if you're a movie buff, you would love each and every one of these books. So, and if you got a particular decade you're looking for, he's written about it. So, well, cool. Now, getting back to the specials. What about you guys? Are you seeing new specials coming out all the time in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, what I've found fascinating about this has been the fact that as every new generation grows up, there are their own traditions that they love and they look back to, in terms of what they consider to be the ideal Christmas. For me, because I grew up in the 80s, there's lots of really good Christmas programming that we remember from back then. I remember, for instance, the Cheers Christmas specials with
Yes, that's right.
onwards. Over here, of course, there was lots and lots of TV specials. You had double acts like Cannon and Ball, Little and Large. You had the Paul Daniels magic show. All of those things that really made up a really memorable TV Christmas over here. But I mean, over in America, I mean, it was on a whole new level. I mean, you even had the Star Wars holiday special.
Yes, and every sitcom had their own Christmas special. I mean, every theme, everyone had a theme for Christmas, and it was, and they were fun. I mean, they were great fun, and you knew, and you still look them up now and go, oh, I remember that, So yeah, it's nice to see that that's continuing. Oh, and by the way, I want to tell our viewers, please take a moment and like our videos, subscribe to our videos, and make sure you hit that little bell so you get notifications when we're coming out with new podcasts. So Tom and I are trying to do, if you love his accent, you definitely want to know when he's coming out with a new one. So make sure you subscribe, like, and hit that bell. So now keep going. I'm sorry, Tom, I just had to throw that in.
So do you mean when we're coming out with a new video or when I'm coming out with a new accent?
Well, it's not a new accent. It's just your Scottish accent, which everybody loves over here. So, and just to remind our view, Tom is from Stirling, Scotland. And in fact, you've even got a special thing going on tonight, don't you? You're going to the second oldest building in Scotland?
Yes, well, in Stirling, yes, it's the
Stirling, I mean? Yeah.
Church of the Holyrood. Yes, it's the 12th century it was built, and it's now used for events as well as for people worshipping there. So it's an amazing place. It's the same church where Mary Queen of Scots worshipped, where King James VI and First was coronated. The same church where John Knox preached. So you feel the weight of history whenever you go through the door there. So it's an amazing building. I think for people of all religions and even no religions, the history is fascinating.
And that is one of the things. I mean, and this is what I love talking to Tom about. Is he's talking about going to a place that was in the 12th century. Heck, Columbus hadn't even gotten over here yet, and wouldn't come for another couple of hundred years. So their history, we don't even know what the word history means compared to Scotland, but he lives in an area that is just ripe with it, and it's kind of fun. So anyway, just another little aside there. I'm feeling like I'm all over the board today, but I love talking to you, and I love hearing about the different things you're doing. So anyway.
So on the subject of history and Christmas TV, one of the big additions that we've had over here in the last few years has been an M.R. James ghost story, which usually is shown on Christmas Eve in the old British tradition of telling a ghost story at Christmas time. What would you say is the most unusual addition to American TV? What's happened in the last few years that has surprised you at Christmas time?
Well, again, everything keeps changing so fast. And of course, now with the thing with AI and stuff now, they're doing even more stuff where they can put so many different things into a Christmas TV special that you couldn't do back in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. So when you see a special now, it's just amazing. And unfortunately, too many people just take that as like it's really happening. But it's amazing, all the ingenuity behind it. So, and it's just fun to watch. I mean, the specials that are coming out today are like nothing we've ever seen before. So, As far as any one thing, I can't think, nothing comes to mind right off the top of my head. Just a lot that's out there.
Yeah. Well, of course, for kids that are growing up now, of this is their golden age of Christmas TV, and the programming that's coming on now, of course, is what they're going to look back on with their own nostalgia. Where do you think Christmas TV is going to go then in the next few years? Because obviously now that we have streaming TV and we've got so much choice, people are able to make their own ultimate lineup of TV watching.
Well, and that is true. However, it's amazing how much, and as you mentioned it, the nostalgia portion of this comes in. I mean, it isn't Christmas unless you see a Charlie Brown Christmas. It isn't, if you don't see Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or, all the wonderful Rankin Bass specials that used to come out at Christmas time, and they're still showing these. I mean, I'm watching little shorts like Hard Rock Coco and Joe, which was done in the 1950s in Chicago, which is literally a stop action claymation kind of thing, and it's still being shown. So the thing is, it's not so much what they're doing now, it's just the full range that's available for Christmas. I mean, you can spend days just looking at things that are out there, and more things coming. So it's kind of fun being in this time period where you can watch the old, you can watch the new, and everything in between.
Yeah. And the key thing is we all have our own favourites. So if you at home would like to tell us a little bit about your Christmas TV memories, and you want to perhaps share some of those happy times with us, why not come and visit us on our website, which is traditionally-speaking.com, and you can leave comments for us. You can get in touch with us, and you can give us suggestions about what your favourite TV shows have been.
It's a great idea. I would love to, I'd like to see how many people are into the new stuff and what their favorites are versus some of the old stuff, and what are you still watching that, from years past, or are discovering now that you never had seen. So it'd be fun to hear that from our listeners and our viewers. Yeah, absolutely. Please give us some comments.
So if you enjoy broadcast TV that goes back to the 60s, things like Christmas Night with the Stars, or if you prefer some of the more recent things, Kylie Minogue's Christmas concert, for instance, I'm sure there's something on there that everybody has enjoyed at one point or another. We'll certainly look forward to hearing more about what you have enjoyed and, and some of your Christmas memories.
And reignite that Christmas spirit, folks. We need it. I'm looking forward to it this year. So anyway, well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And Tom, boy, thank you so much for bringing up this subject. This was a fun subject to talk about, and certainly solicit some memories as well as some exciting things to come. So.
Well, thank you, Joe, very much for being here and for joining what has been a really interesting topic. Thank you, everyone at home, for joining us. I really hope you'll tune in again soon.
Thanks all. Take care.